was going back and looking over some of the feats I'd cataloged from previous episodes of the One Piece anime, and I came across Big Mom's Fulgora attack. Because just when it strikes, there's a very brief few seconds where you can see a air explosion, a shockwave, a massive shockwave that encapsulates the entire island of Onigashima itself. So I'm going to calculate that, because it's quite insane when you actually get down to the numbers. So right off the bat, there are a few things we can look at for scaling. Obviously, the island. Now, the island is about 8 kilometers in diameter, but it's obscured in this scene. Because of the constantly flashing light and the changing shade and shadow, it's almost impossible to get an actual good measurement of the island itself. So instead, we're going to do what I always like doing. We're going to use the eye, because the eye, as we've talked about before, is about 400 meters in height, and it's also very consistent. So using that as a comparison, and then kind of scaling out and looking at the broader picture of this feat, the farthest away we see is about 148 pixels, or translates to about 20.5 kilometers away. So this means that this airburst shockwave has a radius of about 20.5 kilometers and a volume of about 36,000 kilometers cubed. Multiplying that by the density of air, 1.225 kilograms per cubic meter, and we find that this explosion moved about 400 trillion kilograms of air in this one burst. Now it takes the explosion 0.21 of a second for it to move the entire distance, the 20.5 distance, putting it at a speed of about 220,000 miles per hour, just slightly under that. But that is the speed of lightning, very close to it. It's not that far away. So for this explosion to reach a speed of 22,000 miles per hour in less distance than 20.5 kilometers and in less time than 0.21 of a second, it must have an acceleration equaling that about 933,000 meters per second squared. This would generate a force of about 41 quintillion newtons of force. And so dividing that force by the surface area of the blast, we can kind of extrapolate from the explosion itself, and we can find this had a pressure about 78,440 bars of pressure. It's quite insane considering that most explosions don't really reach much over 5. I think 5 is the standard to uproot trees. So this is insane. In real life, this would have just obliterated the island in its entirety. Though to be fair, in real life, the lightning bolt itself would have also just obliterated the island in its entirety. But this is not real life, luckily. This is fiction. That's why we can get numbers this high. Plugging the radius of the blast and the pressure in bars into this formula that I've used many times before recently too, we find that Big Mom's Fulgora attack had a power of over 100 teratons of TNT, enough to wipe life from the planet. It's big, like her name says. It's Big Mom. Now, in case you're wondering about the power of the lightning bolt, I measured the size real quick, didn't really put a whole lot of effort into it, but a lightning bolt of that size, just for the anime, would be about 300 gigatons of TNT. So that's still impressive in its own right, but not even near a teraton. Of course, that's not accounting for the time that it was lasting for, because most lightning bolts don't last for a fraction of a second, or only last for a fraction of a second, so it is likely far higher. But just the airburst explosion of the Fulgora is a vast majority of its power, at least how I see it, because I haven't calculated the bolt yet. Of course, depending on how fast lightning actually gets rid of its power, it could be more impressive. Now that I think about it, if it was like, But anyway, that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Remember to stay spectacular. JoJo out. Bye bye.